Welcome to our presentation on optimizing your Adobe licensing. Today we are joined by Suman Chen from Bellark, Ken Shaw, and Ray Thorne, and myself, Daniel Chen. During the presentation, you are able to ask questions in the question box, and at the end we will go over them. We will also open it up where you will be able to raise your hand and we can call on you to ask a question. At the end of the session, the recording will be sent out to your emails about 2 hours after. Thank you. Enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks everyone for joining us today. As Daniel mentioned, the session will be recorded and sent via email. And please feel free to use the Q&A box for questions. And at the end, we'll answer those. And again, we can unmute you. By default, you'll be muted, but we can unmute you if you raise your hand, and you can have an interactive session. So today we'll be discussing optimizing your Adobe licensing. Adobe is a great opportunity for becoming more effective with licensing and costing since they've moved to the term or subscription model. And we'll show you what that's all about. So a little bit about a day's agenda. It's a little complex. There's a number of different purchasing programs. We'll go over those briefly. And then go into the different product suites for Creative Cloud and Document Cloud, various licensing considerations that you should be thinking about. And essentially we'll focus today's optimization on based on usage. Of course, Adobe doesn't by default give you that data, but it's very helpful. Bellark does, of course, but we'll show you some examples of how to use that information to better optimize your usage and costing for Adobe. And at the end, we'll just go over a little bit about Bellark. So fairly short presentation, only about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions. So Adobe's purchasing programs. Adobe uses the word term, but most of us know that as a subscription license. So we'll use the words interchangeably here today. And these, again, are named user licenses where you're assigning a license to a particular user. You can transfer those given restrictions, but those are essentially named user licenses. So there's a number of plans. The enterprise plans or corporate plans, if you will, are typically either the value incentive plan or the enterprise term license agreement or ETLA plan. The value incentive plan are for typically 500 users or less. It's a more fixed plan, 1 to 3 year term, depending on your preferences, and contains most of the applications we mentioned here. Either all apps, you can buy single apps, you can just get Acrobat, Sign, FrameMaker, and a number of other products. But typically it's a more fixed package. The terms are or conditions, if you will, are fixed, and typically for organizations with less than 500. Larger organizations that want a little bit more flexibility as far as products and conditions typically use the enterprise term license agreement. That tends to be a 3-year term, and it can be customized. The conditions can be customized for that organization. And of course, needless to say, pricing can be too. Then there are a couple of perpetual license opportunities. Those are still available from Adobe. And again, this is per machine licensing. Again, they're still open for harvesting purposes, so you can certainly move those from machine to machine. And those are consisting of the cumulative licensing program. A lot of government customers use this program if they still want to use their perpetual licenses, and also available under the transactional licensing program, where it's based on individual purchases or transactions, if you will. Similar kinds of products are as in the cumulative licensing program. So Acrobat, Desktop, FrameMaker, Photoshop, etc. So we'll go into the product suites right now. So Creative Cloud, all apps, Photoshop, Illustrator, Acrobat, available under the VIP, CLP, and TLP purchasing programs. And these are both term and perpetual licensing are options for Creative Cloud All Apps. Creative Cloud for Enterprise, few more products available in that selection. Photoshop, Illustrator, Acrobat Pro, DC, Lightroom, etc. This tends to be the enterprise term license agreements purchasing program. And again, these are term license or subscription license products. Then we go into the Document Cloud products. Again, these are Acrobat and Adobe Sign products. And they are licensed based on two tracks, as Adobe calls them. And it's either or. You really can't do mix them together. So you can either be on what's called a continuous track, and that's a term or subscription license, or you can be on the classic track, and that still allows you to have perpetual licenses. So the idea behind the Adobe is obviously pushing more and more people towards the term or subscription license. So they're adding or claim to be adding new features, some security enhancements to the continuous track that are not available to the classic track, although they do say that all of the major security updates are available to the classic track, but very few new features will be made available to that program. So they are pushing everyone more and more towards the subscription license or term license model, if you will. So what should we be considering on Adobe licensing? So obviously the baseline, what do we have installed is important. And of course we want that by product, version, and edition. The second question is the obvious one, do they require a license? So obviously Reader doesn't. There used to be trials. That's less and less relevant today. But that's still out there. You don't want to be paying for trial licenses on perpetual products. And often, sometimes these products are bundled. So we really don't want to be paying separately for products that are part of the Creative Cloud All Apps suite, if you will. We don't want to be paying separately for those products. And then the second consideration is very important. Are they being used? You know, if they're not used, this is such a wonderful opportunity to use your annual updates in the term or subscription agreement and renegotiate those users. Let's get rid of those. In the perpetual license, obviously, we can move those to different machines. So usage is really, really important. Unfortunately, Adobe is not currently giving us usage information, but Bellark, through a little bit of magic, can get that for you. Creating an effective license position ongoing is very important. And we're really not just talking about this for auditing purposes. This is really to get a handle on your software, to be proactive, and to start optimizing these spends. Adobe pricing has been going up over the years. We're hearing a lot of people are grumbling. It's wonderful products. Obviously, people need to use those. So why not optimize? And obviously, optimizing requires having good, reliable data as far as installs and usage going forward. So great opportunities, as we mentioned, to optimize based on usage. Obviously, in the term or subscription licenses, gives you a chance to renegotiate, limiting the number of users, and certainly transferring from inactive to active users during that term. And on the perpetual side, you may not be able to renegotiate fewer licenses, but certainly no reason to buy more if you've got inactive users transfer those, harvest those to active users or machines, if you will. So I'll give you a couple of examples of what we're talking about here. Um, so here we have an example of a licensed position, and this is including both licenses required and not required. As you see here in the middle column, there's some here that do not require a license for various reasons, and the reason is given here in the next column. So this Pro DC was actually a bundled product, so no reason to pay twice for that one. You can see a couple of other cases here. So basically, we have here, and this kind of information really should be. It can come out of a tool. You can get this to you every day on an automated basis. So no reason to go around having to ask for data calls to your operations or security people for this data. This really should be coming out of your tools. And you can see here it's nicely normalized. This is computers and tools are great at doing this sort of thing. So it gives us the product, the edition, version, the license type, is a license required, and then of course the total computers, total users that's installed on. Now this doesn't yet have usage, but we'll get to that shortly. So here's the ones that similar products, but just on licenses that are required. So we can see here that we have about a bit over 1,000 computers and a bit under 1,000 as far as total users. So some users are obviously logging into more than one machine, which makes a lot of sense. And here we have the usage. So you can see here days last to go. So this particular Acrobat Pro instance, and we've removed the computer and usernames, obviously. But you can see here, this hasn't been used in almost a year. So this is just, brief examples, but having this usage data is critical to actually redeploying that Acrobat Pro to either reducing your license counts at the annual renewals or actually transferring that to different users. So that would be a great candidate. Even the 184, 174, those are almost 6 months. So all of those are good candidates for harvesting, if you will, or non-renewal. Here we have an example of the total license position. So this is more of a summary, if you will. So lots of different Adobe applications gives you the idea of the computer's total users on those machines. And here we break that down as far as usage. So this will tell you the computer that it's on, the user that it's on. And here we can see this one is an obvious case where this is almost 2 years have not been using this edition of Photoshop, the CS2 edition of Photoshop. So it's an obvious candidate for harvesting. Non-renewal and moving it to a useful customer. Here's another one actually. This Creative Cloud All Apps has not been used in almost 2 years. So these are great examples that show up right away. And these are not inexpensive products. So if you've got a few hundred of these, or in some cases, if it's a large organization, you may have more. You can be saving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. In tracking this actual usage of these applications. So Bellark's approach, it's not just based on the discovery, based on your operations tools, security tools, as Gartner tells you to do. You really need a tool that will give you the discovery, the usage, the additions, the versions of these products, and naturally needs to be normalized, needs to be compared to your entitlements, your license, to calculate your license position. And then as far as optimization, in this example, the Adobe example, we're really saying use this automated usage calculation from Bellark to start optimizing those licenses. Bellark's architecture is based on cloud. Everything in the dotted line blue box can be run on premises, can be hosted by our customers, or can be hosted by Bellark. Data is updated from the devices on a daily basis, no matter where they're located in the world. Created in a backend database, SQL Server database is created with the configuration data. And then the web-based reports that we looked at are created also. Typically, this is updated daily, 4 a.m. local time, and all the reports are updated based on the new data that day. So they're always up to date. It's accurate. It's very complete. This also cover work from home machines, traveling laptops. We didn't talk about servers, but also track servers, virtual machines, and the dependencies of those VMs. Just a brief summary from Bellark, a bit over 1,700 customers worldwide. Many names you might recognize. Autodesk is obviously the largest CAD company in the world. We host their server that's run via SaaS, and also quite a few customers in the U.S. federal government, like the Federal Aviation Administration, Department of State, Diplomatic Security, and also within the U.S. Department of Defense. The Air Force runs most of the military district of Washington, has been a long-time customer. Just want to mention one more thing here. Many customers have been with us for many years. Two main reasons. One, it's a very good product, but equally important, we think, is the way we support our customers. We place a very, very high priority on making sure our customers are successful from a support and training point of view. So that's why we think that's why they're with us for a long time. And we have customers located in over 40 countries worldwide, and a number of patents. Actually, the usage that we talked about is one of our patents. So let's go into the Q&A session. Did we have any questions? Let's see. We have one from Simon. We have an ETLA Acrobat Unlimited and can select track and classic. Have choosing classic, but licenses for both. Have licenses for both. So the question, Simon, let me see if we can unmute you, and you can ask the question directly. I wasn't quite clear from the Q&A box. Self-muted. So Simon, yeah, there we go. Could you ask your question?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, okay. Now it's just you said that if you use a continuous track for subscription and classic track for perpetual licensing, we don't have to select that. We have the subscription, but we can select both classic and continuous.
Ken, do you want to address that?
I'm not quite sure I follow. You're saying your contract gives you the right to both the classic and the continuous tracks?
It's not. I don't think it's connected with the license. I think you can select free between continuous and classic track.
Well, it could be that your agreement gives you that right. The point we're making is that a license is either a license for a continuous track product or a classic track product. They're actually different installers. That is, you install a continuous program or a classic program. So you have to make that choice, at least for an individual computer, before you do the installation. And then you're using a license of that type. But again,
okay,
if you have
a little surprised, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, most customers I've seen when I've looked at their purchase record, I mean, their actual purchase paperwork, it specifies whether it's the continuous track or the classic track that they're entitled to, and they're not entitled to both. But that doesn't mean that you can't have an agreement with Adobe that entitles you to both.
I'll double check. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, I guess as Suman mentioned, they don't use the word subscription. So if you're entitled to the continuous track on the paperwork, you'll probably see the word term, T-E-R-M.
Okay.
Great. Hopefully we've chatted, and Simon, we're happy to talk afterwards too. So feel free to reach out to us.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, we have a question from Shobha. Can we find out what product of Adobe Creative Cloud All Apps are being used by a user? Yes, absolutely. So we're actually discovering the separate components of All Apps, and we're picking up usage based on those separate components. So it's very similar to the Microsoft suites, where its Office is consisting of a number of products. We pick up usage based on the actual components. Let me see if we can unmute you, Shoba, and if you'd like, and you can ask further questions.
Thank you so much. Like that answers my question.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just wanted to know if you're going to monitor it component-wise or not.
Yes, that's actually how it's done. At the lower level, it's by default we can only monitor the separate components. There's no such thing as Creative Cloud All Apps to monitor. So we monitor the separate components. We package those together. When we see a number of components, we see that, oh, this is a Creative Cloud All Apps installation, not a separate component. So we actually combine those together, and then we give you the status on whether the All Apps are being used or not. But it's essentially based on the usage of the separate components.
Yes, that would help in better optimizing our licenses because most of the times the users say, I need the Creative Cloud All Apps,
Of
but
course.
we're not sure like whether they're using one product, two products, or more than two, and do
Right.
they really need the All Apps or not?
Right, exactly. So yeah, our usage data automatically gives you that, and then you can make the decision, does it make sense to buy the separate products, or does it make sense to buy the all apps? Right, exactly.
Sure, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, let's see here. We have, how does Track manage VL? Jay Rushing, let's see if we can unmute you. Jay, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, previously we have purchased our volume licensing through a third party,
Okay.
if you will.
Yep.
And one of the things that we are currently doing manually is trying to track the serial number installations and usages.
Okay.
I'm interested to know, and I know that Bellark, previously my experience, can actually provide that information to me per user.
Right.
Compile that information and show me the usage based upon volume license or serial number?
Right. Yes. So yeah. I'm sorry. Was there more to the question?
No. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the short answer is yes. We give you usage based on the user, and if there's a serial number associated with that, yes, you get the serial number. But keep in mind that Adobe has been going away from serialization with the continuous track, if you will. The perpetual machine licenses still do, but the continuous track, the newer products don't have the serial numbers anymore.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for asking. Let's see, what do we have next? Does the ETLA cover both Creative Cloud and DC, or do you have to have individual agreements? Yes, the ETLA covers both as far as a purchasing program. Did you want to unmute you? Let's see if we can unmute you and ask the question. Any further comments? Did you want to unmute? Let's. No. Okay. We will continue. Yomar, where do retail licenses fall under? For example, okay. Do you do a one-off Adobe Acrobat install using a digitally fulfilled Amazon license? I imagine that is classic track named user, not per machine license. So the Ken, do you want to answer that? Yomar's question?
Yeah, you're asking whether a retail purchase through this Amazon fulfillment is necessarily on one track or the other?
You want to
Is
unmute
that your?
yourself, Yomar?
It's scammy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I know horrible practice, but you know, we're an MSP, and sometimes you have one-off purchases, so it doesn't warrant going with like VIP or another kind of
Right.
approach for commercial licenses. So, you know,
Right.
we'll just go to Amazon because other distributors may be backed up, and that's the quickest and easiest thing. You know, you put it in your cart, you check it out, you know,
Right. Right.
it's filled, and then it's your
Yeah.
library, it's done, right? But
Right.
every other
Yeah.
form of Adobe licenses is an absolute nightmare, if you ask me, especially if you're dealing with third-party distributors that take forever for whatever reason to fulfill a digital warehouse item. But anyway, that's another story. I digress.
Yeah, so I guess the best answer I can give is your paperwork should specify whether it's classic or continuous.
Okay.
My impression is that Adobe's preferred track is the continuous or term, but it should say on your paperwork which it is. The other thing is if your paperwork doesn't say, it's still the fact that you are in fact going to get an installer for one track or the other.
Right.
And our discovery can actually tell you which track has been installed. So presumably you're getting the installer for the track that you purchased, whether it's
Right.
specified or not.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a safe assumption if, you know, you're talking about, you know, my guys, I'm the service manager here, but let's say a field tech is installing or help this guy's installing this. They don't have much knowledge about the procurement aspect of things. But I imagine from their perspective, if they're assigning a specific user to that license, that's how you know it's a named user continuous track license, right? Is that a safe assumption to make, would you say?
I think that's strong logic.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Yomar. All right. Let's see if we can go to, I think Sherry's question is next. What constitutes usage? Ah, yes. Opening an app or actual activity? Ken, I think all we can do is tell if the app has actually been launched, right? Not actual activity in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the distinction between running the app and running the app and altering a document, um, I don't think that we can distinguish those.
Yeah. So we're not actually spying on the user's activity, Sherry. We're just it's just a techie thing that we do. If the app has been launched, we count that as usage. So yeah, you're right. Maybe somebody can launch it and not do anything. So that's always a possibility, and we won't track that. Did you want to unmute? Did you have any other questions?
No, that answers the question. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, let's go down the list here, Yomar. What's the easiest way to audit which licenses are transferable for harvesting purposes? Often we have simply abandoned old perpetual licenses due to the difficulties with transfers. Oh, interesting. Not quite sure. Ken, did you have any
I
comments
didn't
on that?
quite understand the question. No, could you repeat the question?
Oh, you can't see them in the Q&A box?
Oh, I don't have that in front of me. I've just been listening to you. Maybe I can open it up.
Okay. Yeah, if you could, we'll come back to that question then. Simon had another question. What if a user has CCE license and only installs FX Photoshop? Can you then see it as a CCE license? Oh, that's an interesting question. Ken?
Yeah,
Back to you again.
I'm not sure where to see the question, so if you could repeat that.
Oh, yeah, the questions are in the Q&A box. Questions
Yeah,
box.
I've opened that up, but I'm not seeing the anything listed. So
Oh, okay. So what if a user has a Creative Cloud Enterprise license and only installs Photoshop, for example, one of the components? Can you see it as a CCE license?
I see. we can't actually be sure. In other words, if there is an installation of a single application, that could be under a Creative Cloud All Apps license, or it could be under a single app license. So we use heuristics to determine whether we consider it part of the suite or as a standalone product. If in your situation that turns out to be incorrect, there's a way to override the default logic and force it to come out one way or the other.
Right. Yeah, so I could unmute you again, Simon. Yeah, the basic
I guess
issue
I'll just add, let me just add, in the old days when the serial numbers were used,
right.
we could guaranteed figure it out one way or the other. But since they gotten rid of the serial numbers with the subscription license or term licenses, it's not possible to tell for sure whether an installed app is part of the suite or not.
Okay, I see. But then you have a workaround where you manually can enter it's a Creative Cloud for Enterprise, for instance.
Yeah, you can say that on this computer, if you find anything, consider it to be part of an app, or the other way around, even if we see multiple components installed. They could possibly be all single app licenses from single app licenses. And so you can override the default logic. So the default logic is kind of common sense to look at a computer and say, well, that looks like it's a whole suite versus that looks like just a single app.
It's a fine way. It's a fine way to make a workaround. Thank you.
Yeah. It's too bad they got rid of the serial numbers where they made it clear in the installation itself what its source was. But
It's
as
too bad they
said,
don't use the suite tag files
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Oh, don't start talking to us about the SWIT tags, Simon.
No,
yeah. So
the
just so you
nightmare.
don't get
Yeah.
just so you don't get confused, they're still supporting the SWID tag files technically, but they don't maintain them completely or correctly. So they're now
I've never
unreliable.
done. And
Right.
new named user installations that don't deploy suite tag files.
Right.
Not for all products.
We've talked to them. We've talked to Adobe about this, but they decided they're not doing it. They're not supporting it. So yeah, we've talked to them from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, I tried
Again,
to.
Yeah.
they're supporting it in a half-baked way. So it's not really useful unless you support it in a fully baked way.
Is it possible to enter named users in your system? So if you have your users in Bellark products, is it then possible to say this user is having a CCE license and then connect it that way?
Yes. Yeah. So we automatically
Yes.
pick up the. Yeah. Go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say, one, as far as the interpretation of what's installed, that's what I was talking about earlier when I said you could override the default logic if it's not correct. But you can also enter your purchases or entitlements and specify what the product is and whether it's part of a suite or not. And that'll be joined up with your installation data to show you an effective license position.
Yeah, I think Simon was also asking about how do we link the user to the named user in Adobe, and yeah, we pick up the users of the machine actually, so that you can do the linkage with the discovery data also. There is an additional step there because often the named users on Adobe are email addresses. So sometimes you'll need to do the linkage between the computer username and their email address first. We also have some automated ways of doing that with our customers. But yeah, just to,
and sometimes the user has two emails, a long and a short one.
Yeah. Well, you can link to both.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some large government customers that are doing this, and it's not too difficult. It's not too difficult.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Let's see. We never got to Joseph's question, so I don't know if you can see the questions yet, Ken, but I can read it to you.
Yeah, I think I figured out how to get it, but
Okay.
I'm not sure where we are on the list.
We're at Joseph's. Joseph Kaufman, asker.
Okay,
So I can
yeah,
read it. In an ETLA for Creative Cloud, where license consumption is defined as deployment and access would be installation of Lightroom in the absence of subscription for the computer user constitute consumption. If yes, why is that when the subscriber cannot activate the software? Joseph, if you're still on, let's see if we can unmute
yeah,
you.
that needs to be read a couple of times to understand the question.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. So in an enterprise term license agreement for Creative Cloud, where license consumption is defined as both deployment and access, meaning a subscription,
Right.
would an installation of a product, let's say Lightroom, Creative Cloud, right? In the absence of a subscription, in other words, the software is installed on a user's computer, but
Right.
there is no subscription, would the installation alone constitute consumption? Consider the fact that this software cannot be activated because activation requires a subscription.
Right.
Right.
So you're saying that if somebody came around and inventoried your environment and found that installation, should
Exactly
that count
right.
as needing a
In an
license even
audit,
though?
yes, in an audit, yes, correct.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure of this, but my understanding is that Adobe still maintains the concept of activation. So after you've done the installation, it's still not activated till somebody fires up the application and does something with it. So I'm guessing that if somebody did an inventory and dug into that installation, they would see that Adobe had not put it into the activated state. And that Adobe would say, yeah, you don't need a license for that because you haven't actually activated it.
And can current inventory tools determine inactive versus activated software?
That's, again, now that they've gotten rid of the serialization and they've only got half-baked support for the software ID tag files, that's confusing, put it that way,
Yeah.
whether it's been
Yeah,
activated or
it
not.
used to be, we used to be pretty comfortable getting that from the software ID tags or SWIT tags, Joseph. We're less and less comfortable that that's still being maintained, but that kind of information used to be in the SWIT tags. We still get that data, but we're careful about our customers using it or not. So it's still automatically discovered, whether it's
Yeah.
been activated or not, but we do tell people to be careful about its interpretation.
So because of the cloudiness around being able to detect activated versus non-activated, would a
Right.
safe approach be to remove any software that was installed but can't be activated? In other words, where there's a discrepancy between the subscription and the installed software?
Yes, yeah, that'd be the way to clean things up, would be to get rid of inactivated installations.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess that's kind of a pain if you've been counting on that. On the other hand,
Yes.
most software, when you install it, it requires a license. So
Yeah,
this,
because it wouldn't be uncommon
So-
for a user to get all apps installed under an ETLA, and then later on, after some usage and harvesting, we realize they just need Photoshop and Acrobat. So therefore, we changed the subscription to do 2 single apps to save money, but we installed other products that they're not using. So it'd be required to either remove the unused software through a harvest effort. But if there's a bundling restriction, that's even more complicated because then you need to remove all the software and reinstall as 2 single apps.
right,
Very troublesome.
Yeah, we recommend the latter actually, because that way both your discovery and your license entitlements will match properly.
Got it.
Yeah, if you leave everything still installed, there's always a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun stuff, huh?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, Stefan, do you have experience in migrate different VIP contracts? Maybe we should unmute you, Stefan, if you're still on the line, and you can ask it directly.
Hello to everybody from Germany.
Hello.
Hi. Yes, exactly. We have different VIP contracts, one in the US and one in Europe.
Yep.
And we try to migrate the both to one.
Yep.
And I think we will have some difficulties to do that because of different termination dates and so on.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have different vendors in the countries, and
right.
That's why maybe only one vendor could manage the portal, the Adobe portal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And do you have any experience to do that because of these difficulties?
Well, we would suggest that you track them until your contracts are together. You can track them as separate contracts. So we can track. Yeah, we suggest you keep it simple so that you track the installs as in one group, if you will, and match that with your Europe contract, and you track your outside of Europe as a separate contract. So yeah, I mean the tools can certainly do that. That's not a problem. We do much more fine grain than that. But yeah, we suggest that you actually keep it separate until they're together, because that's how the publisher, Adobe in this case, but others too, that's how they're going to track you also. So we suggest that you mirror your contracts rather than trying to combine them until you actually combine them with the vendor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is a point to think about.
Yeah.
I will discuss it with our internal Adobe key accounts, and
yeah.
Maybe
if you can combine them, it's always great. That's great. But until you can do that, we suggest that you track both the usage separately in both regions, and the entitlements until you can combine them, right?
Yeah, we use a different tool like yours to inventory our usage and the assets and so on.
Sure. Yeah.
And yes, we have the possibilities to do that, but it's only the thing that the two contracts, Adobe is not willing to migrate them.
Right.
Because we reach another discount level, and why should Adobe support that?
Yeah. Well, you'll have to convince them at some point, but
yeah, I will send them flowers. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe more.
Okay.
Maybe a stick, maybe a big stick too, but yeah, maybe both.
Or
But yeah, we suggest you
chocolate,
track them separately. Yeah, so both on the usage side and the entitlement side, you should be able to, within your tool, track them separately, and that's what many of our customers are in similar positions can do.
Okay.
We have lots of government customers that have to track software bought by a particular group within the organization, and they don't want that software used in other organizations. Or if another group buys it, they don't want them to be mixed. So we track them both in the separate grouping is what we call it, basically.
Yeah, but we have an organization inside that manage the software licenses, and this organization can manage all the Adobe licenses for US and for Europe.
Yeah.
And that's why we try to do it.
Yeah, of course.
And why you should do it separately.
Yeah, you should be able to convince Adobe at some point.
Okay.
We have seen those combines before, so you should be able to convince them. But until you do, you need to track it separately.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Let's see. We still have some other questions. Let's see, from Guy Michalov, are you monitoring usage based on open software or open software activity? I think we answered that with Sherry's question, Guy, unless you want to ask more, but basically it's if the application has been launched, not any particular activity within the application. Yeah, I think you said that. Let's see. Let's see, what else do we have here? On the side scoop of this webinar, are your product work with Autodesk software as well? It's identify software. Yeah, certainly feel free to reach us. Yeah, we track, we do similar work with all of the vendors, so please feel free to reach us. Also, if anyone would like copies of the presentation, please feel free to send an email to info@Bellark or ask us any questions. So I think we've probably gone over most people's time, but thank you very, very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you all at a future webinar. So thanks, everyone. See you soon.